Details are emerging this weekend about a proposed 21-point peace plan from the United States aimed at ending the war in Gaza. On the eve of a pivotal meeting at the White House with President Donald Trump, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu shared his thoughts in an exclusive interview, describing both the opportunities and the challenges ahead. Netanyahu began by stressing that the negotiations are ongoing. We're working on it. It's not been finalized yet, he said. We want to free our hostages, we want to get rid of Hamas rule and have them disarmed, Gaza demilitarized, and a new future set up for Gazans and Israelis alike and for the whole region. Reports suggest that if both Israel and Hamas accept the plan, the war could end immediately. The Israel Defense Forces would gradually withdraw from the Gaza Strip, and all hostages would be released within 48 hours. In return, Israel would free 1,000 Palestinian prisoners and aid would surge into Gaza. Hamas members who remain in the territory would be offered amnesty. On the contentious question of granting amnesty to Hamas, Netanyahu struck a cautious tone. If Hamas leaders, for example, are escorted out of the country, if they finish the war and release all the hostages, we let them out. That is something I've said in the past, but it has to be worked out. I'm not going to preempt it because we're having these discussions exactly right now. Pressed about the strength of Hamas's forces, Netanyahu dismissed claims that the group had replenished its ranks. He explained, as we decimated them, they stole the food that we were giving to Gazan civilians, hiked up the prices, and used it to recruit replacements, sometimes 14 or 15-year-olds. They're blackmailing Palestinian families to give them their kids. He described a growing backlash against Hamas inside Gaza itself. You have Gazans now fighting Hamas. They've had enough. They're killing Hamas. Some of them are dying in the process because they've had enough, and I fully understand them. Another contentious element of the plan involves the future administration of Gaza. The US proposal envisions a temporary government formed by Palestinian technocrats, supervised by Washington until the Palestinian Authority completes reforms and is able to resume governance. Netanyahu, however, remains deeply skeptical about any renewed role for the Palestinian Authority. Quoting from his recent address to the United Nations, he said, "Giving the Palestinians a state 1 mile from Jerusalem after October 7th is like giving al-Qaeda a state 1 mile from New York City after September 11th. This is sheer madness. It's insane, and we won't do it." Netanyahu argued that the Palestinian Authority has not shown the willingness to change its policies. If all of that is turned on its head, if they accept the Jewish state, teach their children to embrace coexistence instead of annihilating it, and stop paying terrorists to murder Jews, well, good luck. I don't think it's going to happen. Another sticking point involves Israel's military operations in Qatar, where some Hamas leaders are based. One of the points in the US plan calls for Israel to pledge not to carry out further strikes there. Netanyahu defended past actions that caused tension with Washington and angered Arab states. The United States and any self-respected country doesn't give a pass to terrorists, he said. We weren't attacking Qatar any more than you were attacking Pakistan when you took out bin Laden. He made clear that he would discuss the issue directly with President Trump, adding, "Sometimes diplomacy should precede public expressions." These strikes had drawn sharp criticism, particularly from the United Arab Emirates, a key partner in the Abraham Accords, which normalized relations between Israel and several Arab states during Trump's first term. The UAE called the strikes a grave breach of international law and warned they threatened regional peace. Netanyahu pushed back, expressing confidence that the Abraham Accords remain strong. The Abraham Accords have been remarkably resilient and strong, that we've been through 2 years of war, and they've held up very well. The defeat of the Iran terror axis and Hamas and the ending of the hostage situation in Gaza will improve it even further. He went further, saying he believes the Accords could be expanded to include additional countries in the future. Asked about his personal relationship with President Trump, Netanyahu described it as historic. It's actually unparalleled in the history of our two nations. President Trump has been an incredible ally of Israel, recognizing Jerusalem as our capital, moving the American embassy there, recognizing our sovereignty over the Golan Heights, getting out of the disastrous Iran deal, and joining us in preventing Iran from getting nuclear weapons. Rejecting suggestions that he has undue influence over Trump, Netanyahu said, "The idea that I control him is ridiculous. It's a lie. I think America's blessed with a very strong and independent leader." On the threat posed by Iran, Netanyahu echoed his remarks at the United Nations. "We must not allow Iran to rebuild its military nuclear capacities." These stockpiles must be eliminated. He acknowledged that not all of Iran's enriched uranium was destroyed in the joint US-Israeli strikes, but emphasized that the mission had focused on crippling Iran's ability to produce more. We knew that in advance. We were targeting the capacity to make more of that enriched uranium and the attempt to weaponize it. We struck hard. Netanyahu praised the recent renewal of UN sanctions on Iran, saying, "That actually is a good thing that happened. Not many good things happen in the UN." Responding to accusations that Israel has imposed a starvation policy in Gaza, Netanyahu rejected the charge outright. "I think it should all be laid at the feet of Hamas. They looted at gunpoint, killed the drivers, took the food for itself, and left crumbs at exorbitant prices for the Palestinian people." He explained that Israel had attempted to bypass Hamas's control by establishing US-manned distribution points for humanitarian aid. They shot there too. They created this whole deprivation and, of course, laid it at Israel's doorstep. And the international media bought it hook, line and sinker. It's just ridiculous. Netanyahu added that Israel had delivered unprecedented levels of aid during the conflict. "We pushed 2 million tons of aid into Gaza from the beginning of the war. So that's 1 ton of aid per person, 3,000 calories per person per day. That's the opposite of starvation." He conceded that conditions in Gaza have been harsh, but insisted there was no famine. There was no starvation. There was deprivation, that's true. To reinforce his point, Netanyahu referred to the treatment of detainees captured during the conflict. "You won't see a single emaciated person there," he said. On the sensitive question of civilian casualties, Netanyahu maintained that Israel's efforts to minimize harm were unprecedented in such urban combat. "Our estimate at most is it's considerably less than 2-to-1, which is almost a historic low in urban warfare. We're taking a lot of care not to hurt civilians." Finally, turning to the plight of hostages still held by Hamas, Netanyahu's voice hardened. "Yes, I do believe 20 hostages are still alive, and we're committed to get them out, every last one of them, including the deceased hostages. I think it's outrageous that they're holding grandmothers and grandchildren hostage. Who does that? These are monsters." He called on the world to unite in demanding their release. Every nation now in the world has to say one thing to Hamas: release the hostages, all of them, and lay down your arms. If you do that, the war can come to an end immediately, right now. As Netanyahu heads to Washington for his meeting with President Trump, the stakes could not be higher. The proposed US peace plan offers a potential path to end a devastating conflict, but faces significant hurdles over Hamas's future, the role of the Palestinian Authority, and Israel's security concerns. The Israeli leader's remarks underscore both the urgency and the complexity of the situation. His determination to dismantle Hamas and secure Israel's future remains steadfast, even as he acknowledges the necessity of US partnership and diplomacy to chart a path toward peace. In the coming days, the discussions in Washington may decide whether the fragile hope for an end to the war in Gaza can be turned into a lasting reality. Netanyahu's message was clear. The path forward hinges on the release of hostages, the disarmament of Hamas, and a unified international stance against extremism.